Man saves pregnant K9 German Shepherd horse from flood. Then all the dogs do something shocking. She was barely alive. A pregnant K9 German Shepherd mix, tangled in debris and mud, her legs too weak to stand as the floodwaters kept rising. Everyone thought it was too late. But then one man jumped into the current, risking everything to pull her out. What happened next stunned even seasoned rescuers. Because as she lay gasping on dry land, surrounded by strangers, something unimaginable happened. Every dog in the shelter began to howl, and what they did after will break your heart in the most beautiful way. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. It helps us bring more inspiring and unforgettable stories like this one to you. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. In the small town of Millstone, Arkansas, the river that usually trickled gently past the edge of the community had become a furious, muddy monster. Roads had vanished underwater. Lawns had turned into ponds. Emergency sirens blared all day and night. But for Cole Thompson, a 37-year-old mechanic and former volunteer firefighter, the worst moment came on that third night, when he heard barking. It wasn't just any bark. It was desperate, rhythmic, like a signal. He was standing at the edge of what used to be Old Mill Road, staring out over a floodplain now blanketed by brown water and floating wreckage. He was helping coordinate with a search team when he caught the sound, sharp, strained, echoing across the flood. "Did you hear that?" he shouted to the others. One of the responders looked up, frowning. Could be a coyote, but Cole shook his head. That was a dog, and it's calling for help. Without another word, he pulled his jacket tight, grabbed a flashlight, and started walking toward the source. The water rose quickly, from his ankles to his knees, then to his waist. Trees leaned like broken skeletons. Trash bins and branches floated by. And then he saw her, tangled in the remains of a collapsed wooden fence. Barely above water was a German Shepherd. Her coat was soaked, her body trembling. Her paws were trapped in a snarl of barbed wire and branches. But her eyes, they didn't blink. They didn't flinch. They locked with his. Cole felt his breath catch. Something about those eyes. They weren't just scared. They were pleading. He splashed forward. "It's okay, girl," he murmured. "I'm coming." The water was colder than he expected. As he moved closer, he could see the thick rise of her belly. She was pregnant, very pregnant. He could tell by the way her body shifted, how carefully she tried to move, not just for herself, but for whoever was growing inside her. "You poor thing," Cole whispered. "How long have you been here?" She didn't answer, of course, but she didn't growl either. She let him get close, let him untangle her paws with fingers numb from the cold. She whimpered once, a sharp sound that made him wince, but then went silent again, as if she knew whining wouldn't help. Only patience, only hope. It took him nearly 15 minutes to free her. By the time he got her loose, he could barely feel his hands. The current tugged hard, nearly knocking him down twice. But he wrapped his arms around her body, cradling her against his chest, and turned toward the high ground. She didn't resist, didn't struggle. She just trusted. The others saw him coming and rushed down to meet him. "Is that a German Shepherd?" one of the responders asked. "She's pregnant," Cole said, shivering. "We need to get her dry. Now." They loaded her into the back of a supply truck and rushed her to the temporary animal triage center set up at the Millstone County Fairgrounds. It wasn't much, just a few tents, cages, and volunteer vets working by flashlight. But it was warm, dry, and full of the only thing that mattered now. People who cared. The moment Cole placed her on a pile of blankets, something extraordinary happened. The shelter, filled with more than 30 displaced dogs, went silent. No barking, no whining, just silence, and then a single low howl. It came from the far end of the shelter, from an old bloodhound named Rufus, who hadn't made a sound in 2 days. He howled long and low, his voice deep and mournful. Then another dog joined in. Then another, and another. Within a minute, every single dog in the shelter was howling in unison, a chorus of sorrow, of solidarity, of something ancient and unseen. The vet techs froze. Even the animals in crates stood up, ears perked, bodies still. Cole stood there, soaked and stunned, staring down at the shepherd as her belly heaved slowly with each breath. "What is happening?" one of the volunteers whispered. No one had an answer, but Cole knew one thing. This wasn't just a rescue. It was a moment the dogs understood before the humans did. He knelt beside her, running his fingers through her damp fur. "Looks like they know you're special," he murmured. A young vet named Dr. Lena Rivera approached and checked her vitals. "She's strong, amazingly strong, considering what she's been through. And yeah, she's about to give birth." Cole's eyes widened. Now could be hours, could be minutes, but she held out for a reason. They moved her to a private corner of the tent, gave her fluids, wrapped her in warm blankets. The other dogs quieted down eventually, but the energy in the space had shifted. Everyone felt it. This dog, whoever she was, had survived something she shouldn't have. And not just for herself, but for her future. Cole stayed with her through the night. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the way she had looked at him. Maybe it was the way the other dogs responded. Or maybe it was something else. Something about her presence, fierce, maternal, silent, reminded him of someone, his mother, a woman who had once dragged him out of a house fire when he was 8, who'd carried him on her back, barefoot, through smoke and broken glass. She died 2 years later from cancer. But Cole never forgot the look in her eyes that night. The determination, the pain, the refusal to let go. That's what he saw in this dog. She didn't know him, but she had chosen him anyway. And so he stayed and waited, because if she could survive a flood for the lives inside her, the least he could do was sit through the night beside her and be there when they arrived. At dawn, the rain finally stopped, but the damage was done. Downtown Millstone was underwater. The main bridge had collapsed. Hundreds of people were displaced. But in the back corner of a makeshift animal tent, something far more fragile was about to begin. A new life. Cole hadn't slept. He sat on a camping chair pulled up next to the blanket pile where the German shepherd rested. She was dry now, but her eyes were still glazed with exhaustion, her breathing slower but strained. Every few minutes, she shifted slightly, then stilled again. Dr. Lena Rivera, the 29-year-old vet overseeing the shelter's triage, crouched beside her and placed a hand on her swollen abdomen. "She's trying to hold on," she murmured. Cole leaned forward. "Is that bad?" "It's not great. The stress, the trauma, it can delay labor, but it can also complicate it." Lena's voice dropped. "If she goes into distress before the first pup comes out, we don't have the surgical setup for an emergency C-section. We'd have to transport her. Then we'll transport her." "To where, Cole?" she asked gently. "The roads are underwater. The nearest proper clinic is 30 miles south. If she crashes, she'll crash fast." Cole looked at the dog. Her eyes were closed now, but her ear flicked in his direction when he whispered, "You hear that, girl? You're going to have to fight one more time." Lena looked at him. "We gave her a temporary tag for now. Female, no chip, no collar. We're calling her case number 204. Cole frowned. "She deserves better than that." "Suggestions?" He thought for a moment, then nodded. "Rain," he said. "Call her Rain." Lena smiled. "Rain it is." By mid-morning, the shelter was full. More animals were being pulled from flooded homes, barns, even from treetops. Volunteers rushed around in wet boots and soaked jeans. The barking was nonstop. Tempers flared, and Rain was slipping. Her breathing had become more erratic. A thin line of saliva dripped from her mouth as her body trembled. Cole jumped up. "She's seizing?" "No," Lena said, already at her side. "This is labor, but it's not starting clean. She's in pain, and she's holding back." Rain growled softly, a sound not meant for aggression, but warning. Her muscles tightened. Her legs kicked weakly. "We need to stimulate contractions," Lena said. "I'll prep the oxytocin, but we're going to have to be extremely careful. Her vitals are borderline." Cole touched Rain's face, gently brushing the fur near her cheek. "You've done the hard part," he whispered. "You survived the flood. You made it here. Now it's time to let go. We're with you. You don't have to carry it all alone anymore." He didn't know why he was saying those words. They just came out. But something in Rain's breathing shifted. A pause. A long, trembling exhale. And then a soft whimper. She was listening. The first puppy was born at 1:42 p.m. Tiny, wet, alive. Cole watched with awe as Lena gently rubbed the small body with a towel, cleared its airway, and placed it by Rain's belly. Rain instinctively turned her head, weak but alert, and nudged the pup with her nose. "She's still got fight," Lena said. The second came 15 minutes later. Then a third. The fourth took longer. By then, Rain was panting heavily, her strength clearly fading. "She's losing stamina," Lena said. "I don't know how many more she has in her, but—" A sharp yelp stopped her mid-sentence. Rain convulsed. Not violently. Just once. Then she went very still. "Rain," Cole said quickly, dropping to his knees. Lena was already checking her pulse. Still beating but faint. The fourth puppy came out breech. Not breathing. Lena worked quickly, rubbing it, clearing fluid from its mouth. She pressed gently on its chest. Once. Twice. Then a tiny cough. "It's alive," she said, letting out a breath. "Barely." Rain opened her eyes. Just slightly. Looked at Cole. And whimpered. He knew that sound now. It wasn't fear. It was apology. She was giving everything she had. The fifth puppy came stillborn. The sixth came gasping, wrapped in its own cord. By the seventh, Rain had stopped moving completely, save for the occasional twitch of her back leg. Cole sat beside her, stroking her paw. He whispered the same 3 words over and over. "You're not alone. You're not alone." He barely noticed the other dogs anymore, but if he had, he might have seen them watching. Silent again, every single one, as if they were holding vigil, as if Rain had become their heartbeat. 2. By sunset, Rain had given birth to 8 puppies. 6 had survived. Cole held one in his palm, no bigger than a potato, while Lena placed warm cloths around Rain's body. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes barely open. "She needs rest," Lena said. "She may not make it through the night." Cole nodded, eyes wet. "But the pups, they've latched. That's a good sign." Rain stirred faintly, her paw moving as if to gather her newborns closer. But she didn't have the strength. So Cole did for her, lifting each pup and placing them near her belly, one by one. She looked at him then, fully, eyes locked, and in that moment, something passed between them. It wasn't gratitude. It was something deeper. Recognition. He had saved her from the water, but now she had saved him from himself, from the grief he didn't speak about, from the loss he never faced, from the loneliness he wore like armor. And as she closed her eyes again, her breathing just a little steadier, Cole whispered, "You're not just Rain anymore. You're a mother." And every dog in the shelter, every soul in that space, felt it, not just the end of the storm, but the beginning of something greater. By the next morning, the town of Millstone had begun to breathe again. The floodwaters were receding. Power was slowly being restored. Trucks from FEMA and regional rescue groups rolled to the cracked roads, distributing supplies and assessing damage. At the fairground shelter, things were still tense, but there was light. Rain had survived the night. Barely. She was too weak to stand, but her pups were nursing. And when Cole leaned close, she opened one eye and gave the softest wag of her tail. It wasn't much, but it was everything. Cole had barely left her side. He hadn't showered. His clothes smelled like mud and wet wool. But he didn't care. To him, this dog, this mother, had become something sacred. Something that made him feel useful again. He sat beside her crate, legs crossed, one hand resting gently on her flank while the other offered soft strokes between her ears. Every few minutes, he'd check the pups, adjusting blankets, wiping their tiny mouths with gauze, speaking softly as if they were human babies. He didn't even notice the 2 men until they were standing at his shoulder. "Sir," one said. Cole turned. They wore windbreakers marked Department of Animal Control. Cole stiffened. Can I help you? The taller man, blond, mid-40s, clipboard in hand, gave a polite nod. We're doing intake and transfer for all unregistered rescues. This the shepherd with the litter? She has a name, Cole said, his voice low. It's Rain. Right, Rain. The man flipped through his papers. Looks like she doesn't have a microchip. That makes her property of the state for the next 72 hours, pending reclamation. After that, she'll be moved to county shelter for evaluation and long-term foster placement. Cole blinked. No, she's not going anywhere. The other officer, younger redhead, chewing gum, chimed in, Not your call, sir. She's city property until a claim's made. She's not property, Cole said, standing now, voice rising. She's a living being who survived a flood, gave birth to 8 puppies, and fought harder than anyone in this room. I was the one who pulled her out of the river. I stayed up all night, making sure she didn't die. You're not putting her in a steel cage and driving off like she's a crate of gear. The blond man stayed calm. We understand your attachment, Mr. Thompson. Cole Thompson. Mr. Thompson. We appreciate what you did, but the law is clear. No chip, no collar, no ID, we take her in. She's got 8 pups, Cole snapped, and she's barely alive. She'll be placed with her litter in a facility better equipped for postnatal care. Cole took a step forward. You haven't even looked at her. The redhead crossed his arms. Look, man, we got 40 animals to process today. Don't make this hard. At that moment, Dr. Lena Rivera stepped in. She'd been standing nearby, watching. Actually, she said, voice cool but firm, we are equipped for postnatal care. I'm the senior vet here, and Rain is under my direct supervision as a medical priority case. That gives me the authority to delay any transfer based on her physical stability. Both men turned. Doctor, that might be a stretch, the blonde said. We were told to clean up undocumented rescues today. Fast. Well, here's a document, Lena said, handing over a chart. Rain is currently in critical recovery, and any disruption to her nursing pattern could compromise the entire litter. If you like to escalate the issue, I can call the regional director myself. A tense silence. Cole looked at her, grateful. Lena raised her eyebrows at the officers. Eventually, the blonde sighed. We'll note it as medical hold, but she stays under observation. No promises after 72 hours. Understood, Lena said. The 2 men walked off. Cole exhaled, rubbing his face. You didn't have to do that, he said softly. I didn't do it for you, Lena replied. I did it for her. She looked down at Rain, who had lifted her head weakly at the raised voices. Her ears were perked, but she made no sound. Cole knelt beside her again, brushing her forehead. I'm not letting them take you, he whispered. Not after everything. Later that day, Cole stepped outside for the first time in 36 hours. He walked toward the edge of the fairgrounds, phone in hand, scrolling through shelters, rescues, anything that could help him legally adopt Rain. The paperwork would take time. He knew that, and he didn't have much. But he'd be damned if she ended up in some crowded municipal kennel after all she'd survived. He paused when he reached the edge of the parking lot and leaned on a fence, eyes tired. A voice behind him broke the silence. She's changed you. Cole turned. It was Lena. He nodded. Yeah, I guess she has. You're not a dog guy, are you? I wasn't. Not since I was a kid. What happened? He hesitated. Then, my dad was military. We had a retired K-9 at home. Shepherd named Rex. He saved my life once. Pulled me out of a frozen lake when I was 12. My dad said he was the best partner he ever had. What happened to Rex? Cole swallowed hard. He got sick. Fast. I wasn't there when they put him down. I was 16. Missed my chance to say goodbye. I've been carrying that. Lena was quiet. Rain reminded me, Cole continued, of what loyalty looks like, of what it feels like to be needed, and maybe forgiven. She's special, Lena agreed. He nodded. So I need to fight for her. Not because she's mine, but because she's herself. And that should be enough. That night, Rain took a turn. Her temperature spiked. She stopped eating. Lena rushed in, checking vitals, administering antibiotics, giving 4 fluids. Cole stayed at her side the entire time. She's not out of the woods, Lena said. We may need to separate the pups for bottle feeding. No, Cole said. That'll kill her. She needs them. It might kill them if she crashes. Cole looked at Rain, saw the sweat glistening on her fur, her labored breathing. He bent down and whispered, You hear that? They're scared, but you're still here. You brought them into this world. Don't let it take you out. Not yet. And something flickered. Rain opened her eyes. She looked at her pups, then at Cole, and weakly she lifted her head, just enough to nudge the nearest puppy closer. Lena's jaw dropped. She's responding. Cole didn't move, just stayed beside her. We've got you, he said. We're not going anywhere. And for the first time since the flood, Rain fell into real sleep. Not survival sleep, but healing. 3 days passed. Rain was improving. She could stand now, shakily, slowly with Cole's help, and drink water on her own. Her eyes were sharper. She growled when anyone came too close to the pups, but never at Cole. He'd become her constant, her anchor, her warmth, her unspoken promise. The pups were healthy. All 6 survivors were eating, gaining weight, squeaking with energy. One of them, a small male with a white spot on his forehead, had taken to crawling out of blankets and nuzzling against Cole's boots. He called him Scout. The shelter had calmed down. The initial chaos of the flood had passed. Volunteers came and went. FEMA teams packed up. Families reunited with lost pets. But Rain stayed in her corner, safe, quiet, healing, until the man with the badge showed up. It was just past noon. Cole was changing the bedding in Rain's crate when Lena approached him, her expression unreadable. There's someone here to see Rain, she said. Cole froze. Who? Lena stepped aside, and in walked a man in uniform, tall, broad-shouldered, military-cut hair. His tan tactical pants were clean, his boots polished. His K-9 division badge gleamed on his chest, and behind him, a leash hung empty from his belt. My name's Officer Dennis McAllister, he said. That's my dog. Cole stood slowly. Excuse me? The man's gaze didn't waver. Her name's Delta. She served 2 tours with me in Afghanistan. Was retired 6 months ago after an injury to her hind leg. She was being transported to a private home upstate when the flood hit. Truck rolled. Crate busted open. She disappeared. He stepped forward. I've been looking for her ever since. Cole glanced at Rain. Her ears were upright, her body still, her eyes locked on the man, alert but not welcoming. She's been through hell, Cole said. McAllister nodded. She's a fighter. Always has been. Why didn't you report her missing? I did. Filed with local shelters and the VA. But with the flood, paperwork got buried. I only found the updated intake sheet yesterday. Drove straight here. Cole clenched his jaw. She's got 6 puppies. She nearly died giving birth, and she's just now starting to recover. I'm aware, McAllister said, and I'm grateful you helped her. But I need her back. Why now? Cole demanded. She's barely standing. The vet says she needs weeks of rest. McAllister didn't flinch, because she's not just a dog. She's family. She's mine. Behind them, Rain stood, not fully, but tall enough to draw every eye. She stepped out of her crate slowly, legs shaking, body trembling, and moved toward Cole, not McAllister. Cole. She stood beside him, pressed her body lightly into his leg. McAllister watched. His expression softened. She remembers me, but she's confused. Cole swallowed hard. She's choosing. Lena stepped between them. This is a sensitive medical case, she said calmly. Until we confirm the dog's identity and verify all claims, she stays here under my supervision. I have photos, McAllister replied, already reaching into his pocket. Vet files, deployment logs. You'll find her name stamped Delta, code 6-7-1B. He turned to Cole. You helped her survive. For that, I'll always be grateful. But she's a registered K-9 veteran. I signed for her when they retired her. Legally, she's mine. Later that day, Lena confirmed the match. Delta, female, German Shepherd, retired March 6. Served under Officer McAllister. Injured in roadside IED incident. Pregnant at the time of transport. Status, misplaced during disaster. It was her, but Cole couldn't process it. He sat alone on a bench outside the tent, watching the sun go down. Scout lay curled at his feet, nose twitching in sleep. Lena sat beside him. I know what you're going to say, Cole muttered. I'm not going to say anything, she replied. She doesn't want to go with him. She's a working dog, Cole. She was trained for loyalty, for structure, for war. That kind of bond doesn't disappear. She's more than her training, he snapped. She gave birth here. She healed here. She fought through death and came back to her pups. To me, doesn't that count for something? It does, Lena said quietly. But the law sees paper, not pain. Cole buried his face in his hands. Maybe he's a good man. Maybe he loved her. But where was he when she was drowning? No answer. She came out of that flood like she'd been erased, he said. But here, she found herself again. I saw it. I felt it. Lena placed a hand on his shoulder. We can't make her choose. I think she already did. That night, McAllister stayed at a nearby hotel. He said he'd return in the morning to finalize the transfer. Cole didn't sleep. He sat beside Rain's crate. Scout curled in his arms. The other pups nestled in a warm pile of blankets. Rain was awake, staring at him. He leaned close. If you want to go, I'll let you. Rain blinked. But if you want to stay, you have to show them. You have to show me. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a small folded photo. It was a picture of Rex, his childhood German Shepherd, licking Cole's face on his 12th birthday. His mother was in the background, smiling through a window. I couldn't save him, Cole whispered, but I think maybe saving you helped me forgive myself. Rain licked his hand once, then rested her head on his knee, and didn't move all night. The next morning, McAllister returned with a crate and 2 leashes. Cole met him at the gate. She doesn't want to go, he said. She's a dog, McAllister replied. They don't get to decide. She's not just a dog, Cole said. She's a mother. She's a survivor. She's a life. McAllister hesitated, and then Lena stepped out of the tent. She made a choice, she said. Just now. What do you mean? Come see. They walked into the shelter. Rain stood in the corner, calm and alert, nursing her pups. When McAllister approached, she lifted her head, didn't growl, didn't run. But when he held out the leash, she turned away. Not out of fear, but out of finality. McAllister swallowed. She's not coming? She's telling you she already came home, Lena said. He stood there a long moment, then slowly crouched down beside her. Guess you found your next mission, he whispered to Rain. She nuzzled one of the pups. McAllister stood, looked at Cole. You take care of her. I will. And don't rename her again, he said, half smiling. Rain suits her. Then he turned and walked out, leaving the leash behind. 2 weeks later, the fairground shelter closed its doors. The flood was over. Roads reopened. The town was rebuilding. Most animals had been reunited with owners or transferred to long-term fosters. But not Rain. She had a home now. Cole stood in front of his old farmhouse, a weathered 2-story structure tucked behind rows of pine trees on the outskirts of Millstone. The grass was overgrown, paint chipped, but inside it smelled of cedar and fresh bread. A place once too quiet, now filled with sound. 6 puppies, healthy, clumsy, curious, skidded across hardwood floors, tumbling over each other as they explored every corner. Scout had grown fast, becoming the clear leader of the pack. He followed Cole everywhere, sleeping beneath his workbench, crying when left alone even for 5 minutes. Rain had claimed the front room. She spent her mornings on a dog bed near the window, sun warming her back, eyes scanning the yard. In the evenings she nursed, then slept curled around the pile of her pups like a fortress. Cole couldn't believe how easily she fit into his world, and how quickly she had changed it. Every morning, he found her waiting at the door when he came downstairs, tail wagging, eyes calm, the kind of peace that doesn't come from safety alone, but from belonging. She had chosen this place. She had chosen him. Still, Cole knew peace didn't last forever, and he was right. It started with a cough, a short, dry sound from one of the smallest pups, a female with a black muzzle and a white paw. Cole had nicknamed her Daisy. She'd always been the quiet one, the last to eat, the first to nap. He noticed she didn't bounce back up like the others after meals. She slept more, didn't chase Scout. Then the cough worsened. By the second day, her breathing was shallow. Cole rushed her to Lena's clinic, a proper one now, not a tent, where she took one look and admitted Daisy on the spot. Could be pneumonia, she said, or worse. Some flood-related infections take time to show. Her lungs sound wet. Cole stroked Daisy's tiny head. She's a runt. Maybe she just needs more time. Or more help, Lena replied. They kept her overnight. That night, Rain didn't sleep. She paced, circling the crate, scratching at the door, whimpering quietly. She refused to eat. Every time a truck passed outside, she bolted to the window. Cole sat with her, put his hand on her back. She's in good hands, he said. You did your part. Rain licked his wrist and laid her head on his knee. Daisy didn't improve. By the third day, Lena confirmed it. Canine distemper, a dangerous virus, aggressive in puppies, especially ones with compromised immune systems. Cole's heart sank. We isolated her early, Lena said. But if any of the others were exposed... She didn't finish the sentence. Cole looked at Rain, who stood watching through glass, her body tense. Then we do what we can, he said. Lena nodded. You'll need to bring the rest in. Full quarantine. Observation. We may have to separate. She'll never allow that, Cole said. She barely let Officer McAllister near them. I'm not asking, Lena replied gently. I'm telling you, if we don't act now, we could lose the whole litter. Rain did not fight when Cole loaded the pups into the truck. She stood at the tailgate, watching each one placed into a clean crate, her ears flat against her head. She didn't bark, didn't growl, but she shook, quietly, uncontrollably. Cole sat with her in the front seat, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on her back. You've been through worse, he whispered. But this time, I'm staying with you, all the way through. At the clinic, the pups were placed in isolation. Rain was allowed to remain outside the glass, watching, pacing, her eyes never leaving the crates. That night, Scout began to cough. Then a second pup. Cole didn't speak for hours. He stayed in the hallway with Rain, sitting on the floor, arms around her neck as she leaned against him. He didn't cry. Not yet, but he could feel the tears behind his throat. The same weight he'd carried since the fire, since losing Rex, since burying his mother. That ache of helplessness, of watching something you love slip through your fingers like water. But Rain didn't collapse. She didn't give in. She stood guard, every hour, every breath, refusing to leave, as if her presence alone could hold the disease back, as if love could be armor. By the fifth day, 2 pups were stable. 3 were worse. Daisy was on oxygen. Lena met Cole outside the isolation ward. I won't sugarcoat this, she said. If Rain had been a day later in giving birth, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But she gave them a fighting chance. Cole nodded. She's more than a survivor, he said. She's a miracle. Lena hesitated, then handed him a clipboard. What's this? Foster to adopt contract, she said. For Rain. An entire litter. Cole blinked. I thought the state still? They waived the hold, she said. I made some calls. Wrote a letter. The regional director reviewed her case. After what she's been through, after what you've both done, they agreed. Cole stared at the paper. The lines. The signature box. The empty space under owner name. He picked up a pen and wrote his name. That night, Daisy crashed. She stopped breathing for nearly 30 seconds. Rain howled, loud, mournful, a sound that rattled the walls. Lena rushed in. Oxygen, chest compressions, saline drip. For a moment, just a sliver of a moment, it seemed like she was gone. But then she gasped and came back. Rain pressed her head to the glass. Cole pressed his palm beside hers, and the world held its breath. By the end of the week, the infection curve reversed. Daisy began to eat again. Scout coughed less. The fever broke in the others, one by one. And Rain? She slept, finally, for hours. Not from exhaustion, but from peace. The day they returned home, the air was crisp and golden. Cole opened the back of the truck. Rain jumped out first, stretching, sniffing the wind, tail wagging high. The pups followed, clumsy, eager, alive. Scout charged forward into the yard. Daisy trotted behind. Rain stood in the grass, looking at the old house, then at Cole, and she barked once, loud, joyful, like she was saying, "We made it." 3 months later, the farmhouse had changed. The porch had been rebuilt, the windows replaced, and above the fireplace, where a dusty American flag once hung, now rested a clean wooden frame. Inside it, a single silver badge, K-9 Division, Delta 671B, retired honorably. Below the badge, Cole had added a small brass plate, renamed by Rain, saved by her. The pups were nearly full-grown now. Scout had become inseparable from Cole, learning to fetch tools, watch the perimeter, and nudge him awake on the rare mornings Cole slept in. Daisy had fully recovered. Still quiet, still the last to eat, but now always curled next to Rain, like a shadow that refused to leave her mother's side. Rain herself had found balance again. She ran through the yard with ease. Her fur had grown back thick and golden. Her body was strong, but her spirit even stronger. No longer the storm-drenched figure tangled in flood debris, but calm, steady presence that grounded everyone around her. And something had shifted in Cole, too. He smiled more, laughed with neighbors, took longer walks at dusk. He fixed things around town again, not for money, but because people asked, and he no longer felt the weight of saying no. He'd even begun training 2 of the pups, Scout and one of the males, Tank, with simple K-9 response drills. It started as a game. But one day, a deputy who'd stopped by to fix his radio asked if Cole would ever consider joining the county emergency search team. Cole had looked at Rain. She had barked once, short and firm, and that was the beginning. Now, on Saturdays, Cole drove out with Scout and Tank for drills. Rain rode in the front seat, ears perked, eyes alert, like an old commander quietly passing the torch. One afternoon, as they returned from a training exercise, they passed the old floodplain where Cole had first heard her bark. He stopped the truck, got out. Rain followed. They stood there in silence, man and dog, watching the now peaceful water glint under the late autumn sun. Birds chirped overhead. Wind rustled the dry reeds. Cole crouched beside her. "You remember this place?" he whispered. She didn't move, just looked out over the river. He placed his hand gently on her chest. "I do," he said. "I remember how broken you were, and how somehow you put me back together instead." She turned, licking his hand once. And just like that, they walked back to the truck. No drama, no music, no miracle thunderclap, just 2 survivors who had become each other's reason to keep going. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Cole stood on the porch sipping tea. Scout lay at his feet. The other dogs wrestled in the yard. Rain watched them from the steps, eyes half closed, content. Cole looked down at her. "You know," he said softly, "you could have died that day." Rain didn't move. "But you didn't. You waited. You called. And somehow you called me." He paused. "I didn't know it then, but I needed saving too." Rain looked up, and for just a moment, one breath, one blink, Cole swore he saw Rex in her eyes. And his mother, and every hard thing that never quite broke him, because Rain didn't just survive the flood. She ended it, for him, for herself, for all of them.